Over the last 4 years, Matt and I have completed more than 50 house sits. At the time of this recording, together they represent roughly 721 nights. That is almost 2 years of accommodation. Using a conservative comparison of $500 a week, that's around $50,000 in gross accommodation value. But house sitting did not put $50,000 into our bank account. It replaced rent with other costs: travel, accommodation gaps, vehicles, memberships, and a van conversion that definitely did not get paid, with spare change from the couch. So today, I'm breaking down what disappeared from our budget and what replaced it, what happened to our savings rate, and whether house sitting genuinely made us financially stronger. House sitting is often presented as free accommodation. That description is partially true, but it is financially incomplete. We did not completely remove the cost of housing. We changed the way that the cost appeared in our budget. Some fixed expenses disappeared, other costs replaced them. So the important question is not, did we live rent free? The better question is, did the lifestyle leave us financially better off? For us, the answer is yes, but not only because we stopped paying rent. The benefit that was bigger than saving rent. One of the biggest benefits was being able to travel while continuing to work. Matt and I love seeing new places. House sitting gave us a way to travel around Australia without giving up our normal working lives. We could move into homes for several weeks, set up our computers, and continue working online, look after the animals and explore the local area in our spare time. We stayed in cities, regional towns, coastal communities, and places we probably never would have chosen for a normal holiday. We also completed private house sits while visiting family and friends in New Zealand. More recently, Panama became our first longer house sitting experience in another country. That gave us opportunities to experience a different culture, language, and a way of life. We probably would have not come to Panama without house sitting. That opportunity has been enormously valuable for us. But our circumstances are quite specific. We both work online. Our work can travel with us. Not everyone has that flexibility. If your job requires you to be physically present in one place, traveling between house sits may reduce your accommodation costs, but it may also reduce your income. That would completely change the calculation. For us, our income could continue while our locations changed. We were not taking a 4-week holiday and giving up 4 weeks of work. We were temporarily living somewhere new. We usually had a kitchen, internet, laundry facilities, and somewhere to set up our computers. We could slow down, we could live in an area for several weeks, and we could experience the place as part of our everyday life instead of rushing through it like a tourist. So the value was not only the rent that we avoided, it was the ability to combine work, accommodation, and travel within the same lifestyle. That is one of the main reasons the trade-offs have been worthwhile for us. Why we started house sitting. House sitting did not begin as a clever financial independence strategy. It began because life became complicated. Matt and I were already working remotely. Then the builder working on our investment property went into liquidation. The project stalled, costs increased, and we had to deal with the insurance, new builders, compliance, delays, and a significant financial burden. By the middle of 2022, we needed to keep our personal living costs lean while we dealt with everything else. We started arranging private house sits, and then in October 2022, we joined TrustedHousesitters and began doing it more formally. When we had gaps between sits, we used what we had. At the beginning, that was a Suzuki Swift and a 2-person tent. Very glamorous. Nothing says financial freedom quite like trying to organize your life inside a small hatchback. Later, we bought and converted a van. That made the gaps more manageable. But the van also became a major cost. House sitting helped us reduce one expense, but it did not remove the need to make trade-offs. The $50,000 calculation. Let me explain how I calculated the accommodation costs. At the time of this recording, Trusted House Sitters represented 553 nights of accommodation for us. We also completed around 12 private house sits. At an estimated 2 weeks each, that adds another 168 nights. Combined, that is approximately 721 nights, or 103 weeks. I used $500 a week as a conservative rental comparison. That gives us a gross accommodation value of approximately $51,500. I have rounded that down and called it about $50,000. That estimate does not include electricity, gas, internet, content insurance, basic household maintenance, furniture, or the cost of setting up a home. In most house sits, these costs are covered by the homeowner, so the full value may be much higher, but the gross value is not the same as the cash saved. That distinction matters. Imagine someone provided you with $500 worth of accommodation, but it cost you $300 to travel there and the gap before the sit begins. Your financial benefit is not $500, it is closer to $200. So I did not want to present house sitting as a magic system that makes housing completely free. The honest statement is this. House sitting gave us around $50,000 worth of accommodation. Then we had to subtract the cost of making this lifestyle work. Here is the question I think that matters. If your housing costs disappeared tomorrow, would that automatically make you wealthier? Or would the money simply disappear into another part of your lifestyle? Reducing an expense creates financial capacity. It does not decide what you do with that capacity. You still have to direct the money somewhere useful. What disappeared from our budget? The biggest expense that disappeared was obvious. Rent or a mortgage on a home that we personally lived in. Using the conservative $500 a week comparison, that is around $26,000 a year. Then there were the connection costs and the consistent stream of small purchases that appear when you have a permanent home to fill. House sitting removed much of that temptation. There is no reason to buy decor for someone else's home. There is a limited value in buying appliances that you need to carry with you to the next sit. And when everything you own needs to fit into luggage or a van, single-use purchases become much less attractive. We became more deliberate because excess became inconvenient. That changed our food spending as well. We stopped buying bulk food simply because it was on sale. Instead, we bought what was expected to be used during each sit. That meant less expired food, less forgotten food at the back of the pantry, and less waste when it was time to leave. The biggest financial change was not only the rent, it was the number of commitments we stopped accumulating. House sitting taught us to ask a different question. Not only can we afford to buy this, but do we want to carry this with us? That question has saved us a lot of money and it has simplified our lives. What replaced those costs? Now, of course, the costs did not disappear completely. The first replacement cost was travel. A house sit may provide accommodation, but you still need to reach it. For most of our Australian sits, we had our own vehicle, and that gave us flexibility. There were also gaps between house sits. Sometimes we camped. Sometimes we stayed with friends. Sometimes we used motels. And more recently, we have occasionally used Airbnb. In one recent 12-month period, our paid accommodation during gaps came to less than $3,000. That is still far less than a year's worth of rent, but it is not zero. Then there was the van. The van was transport, but it was also accommodation between house sits. So it would be misleading to treat the entire cost as transport. It would also be misleading to call the entire cost housing. It was both. The conversion was also a substantial once-off expense. The exact costs will be different for everybody, and that is why it is so important to compare your real numbers, not only the rent that you've avoided. If this is helping you look at your money differently, subscribe for more practical finance and intentional living videos. What happened to our savings rate? House sitting did not produce the same financial result every year. Our approximate household savings rates were between 20% and 40%. The year where we saved 20% included a large amount of van spending. If we remove the van project from that year, our savings rate would have been more than 50%. That does not mean that the van was a mistake. It means large lifestyle assets need to be included when you assess whether the low-cost living is actually low cost. I'm sharing these figures because they show something important. House sitting gave us more margin, but what happened to that margin depended on the decisions we made next. Some years, the money strengthened our savings. Some years, it funded the van. Some years included major once-off expenses, and some of our available cash continued supporting the investment property. House sitting was not our entire financial strategy. It was one lever, a powerful one, but still only one, the property obligation. We did not pay rent or mortgage for a house that we personally occupied, but we were still carrying a substantial investment property obligation elsewhere. House sitting reduced the cost of housing ourselves. It did not remove every property-related obligation from our financial lives. That distinction is important. When I analyze our personal lifestyle costs, it makes sense to separate the investment property. But when I look at our full financial position, the property still matters. The answer depends on the question being asked: how to work out whether house sitting would save you money. If you are considering house sitting, do not only look at the rent you might avoid. Start with your current annual housing costs. That gives you a more realistic estimate of the financial benefit. Then ask the non-financial questions. Do you enjoy animals? Can you plan ahead? Can you live with fewer possessions? Do you need to stay close to work, family, church, or community? Would the lifestyle give you freedom, or would it make you feel permanently unsettled? A cheaper lifestyle is not automatically a better lifestyle. The goal is not to win the lower cost comparison. The goal is to create a life that costs less than it gives you. Our verdict after 50 house sits. Financially, house sitting has been worthwhile for us. It provided around 103 weeks of accommodation. At our conservative comparison, that represents about $50,000 in gross accommodation value. It reduced the fixed cost of housing ourselves. House sitting did not solve every financial problem. It did something more specific. It lowered one of the largest costs in our lives, and that gave us more room to deal with everything else. We use Trusted House Sitters ourselves. I have included a referral link in the description. If you join through the link, you receive 25% off your membership. We will receive 2 free months added to ours. It is not a cash commission, but it does reduce a future membership cost. Only use the link if the platform genuinely suits what you are looking for. Please check the description for the current offer, as referral terms can change. House sitting changed our finances, but it changed more than where we slept. It changed what we bought, what we carried, what we wasted, and how many ongoing commitments we were willing to accept. The biggest lesson was not that housing could be free. It was that one unconventional decision could create a surprising amount of financial margin, but only if we understood the full cost. Would you consider house sitting to reduce your housing expenses? Or would the trade-off outweigh the savings for you? Let me know in the comments below. Next, YouTube recommends you might enjoy this video.